This is the Talkin Bout The Hoosiers podcast, presented by thehoosier.com. Before we jump into this video, pause it right now and go subscribe to the Hoosier.com website, now a part of On3 Sports, for exclusive content covering the Indiana Hoosiers, including exclusive interviews, live recruiting updates, and much more. Make sure to join our community. We really appreciate it.
And Hoosier Nation, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button here on our YouTube page. We got plenty more content on here, including more talking about the Hoosiers podcast episodes, recruiting highlights, press conferences, and much, much more. It literally takes 2 seconds. Just do it right now, get it over with, and then go on and let's enjoy this new episode.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Talkin Bout The Hoosiers podcast, presented by The Hoosier. I'm joined by Kyle Staley. I'm Drew Rosenberg. Big show today. Big news. It's not really breaking news anymore for us, Kyler. I mean, we kind of leaked it with the breaking news podcasts over the last couple of days of Indiana basketball and recruiting updates, but Talking About The Hoosiers podcast is now officially brought to you by the Hoosier.com website and On3 Sports.
Yes, it is. It is. It was announced obviously last week, the launch of the Hoosier.com on On3. Been in the works for a little bit. Obviously, I won't go into too many details on the back end and stuff, but when the opportunity comes to work with On3 and be hand in hand with On3 Sports, I mean, it's an opportunity of a lifetime, and we really, really appreciate it. And I'm speaking for Alec, I'm speaking for you, Drew, I'm speaking for myself. With us at HoosierIllustrated.com, it was a really, really fun 2 years there. It was really fun growing that thing. But obviously, when you have an opportunity to work with On3, you take that, and we are so glad. The best part about it is we have the whole team, and we have great new additions. With Zach Browning, Colin McMahon, those guys doing a really good job. And plus we have a few more new additions as well that'll be coming along the way and stuff. But I mean, it's exciting because On3 has never really had a IU specific website, a fan site, as you can say. So, with our team, I'm very, very confident that we're really going to grow this thing. And obviously we need the support of all of Hoosier Nation, the guys the people that enjoy listening to this podcast, enjoy reading our stuff. Highly recommend that you go there, subscribe. It's only $1 for your first month, and then it's 50% off the rest of that year subscription. Insane deal, insanely good deal. And obviously we'll have a bunch of good recruiting updates, insider information, really, really good premium stories, and just a bunch more. And I'm excited to bring more content at a higher level. And I'm just excited that I get to continue to cover Indiana athletics at a high level.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the site right now, you mentioned the premium stuff. We have a premium scouting report on Reed Bailey, Indiana's newest addition. Interviews from coveted linebacker target Jacob Savage, transfer portal intel. And when you subscribe, you get stuff from not just us. You're also getting it from the national reporters who are working for On3 Sports, like Jamie Shaw, Joe Tipton, all these guys that, so many of us follow on Twitter for news and all that other stuff. So there's so much good stuff coming. This is just a start for us. And, like Kyler said, when you get an opportunity to join On3 Sports, it's hard to turn down. And we obviously didn't and couldn't turn it down. And, really excited to keep going with Talking About The Hoosiers podcast, and a lot of great stuff coming. So, I mean, he mentioned it. You're going to hear at the end, subscribe, all that stuff. But please do. It helps us so much. And for you guys, it's as simple as clicking a button. It hurts no one. It takes, 1 second for you, but it makes such a big difference for us.
It absolutely does. And like I said, join our community, because we want Hoosier Nation to come in. We want to hear their thoughts. We want to hear their opinions. We want them active in the messaging boards, and being active in the YouTube comments. But like Drew said, hit that like and subscribe button. We're not begging, but we're kind of begging. Just do it, please. No, it's going to be exciting. There's plenty of more stuff to come, and it's already started off as it's only been a week old at this point, and there's already been a lot of cool stuff on there. So check it out. And what are we talking about today, Drew?
We're talking about the Hoosiers. I mean, what else is new right there? But
nothing new about. We're always talking about the Hoosiers.
Talking Hoosier basketball, new roster. I mean, so we're recording this Sunday. This will probably be a Monday. Reed Bailey committed, I think, want to say 4 or 5 hours ago. Davidson Ford, 6'10", from Harvard, Massachusetts. As a Massachusetts guy myself, love to see some representation on the roster. But now you see the roster, I guess you have 4 guys for sure on the roster next year starting to take some shape. Trent Sicily, Reed Bailey, Conor Enright, and obviously Tucker DeVries. It's a good core you have right now. I wouldn't really include Sicily in that core, I'd say, yet. Just as a freshman, you really don't know what you're going to get from him. But a good 3 with Enright, Bailey, and DeVries to start, and a good place for Darren DeVries to build off of moving forward in the portal.
Yeah, it's starting to take shape a little bit. You can kind of see just a slight part of the vision, right? And you kind of see the type of guys that DeVries wants in his system. Obviously, they missed out on Josh Dix and Ryan Conwell and stuff, but this team obviously has a lot of holes still to fill. But obviously, an area that they needed to start filling was the front court, and I really don't think you could get any better than landing Reed Bailey, who's one of the top mid-major prospects, who had a great junior year with Davidson, has been at Davidson for the past 3 years and just gotten better and better. I believe last year he won most improved player in the Atlantic 10 conference, first team all A10 as well. It's been it kind of came out of nowhere, I think, a little bit, but it started to pick up steam in the past week or so. But no, it's a good get. It really is. It's just from a versatility standpoint, he can do so much on the floor. You compare him compare him with any player in the front court. You can have him play like a stretch 5, or you can have him paired with a true big or whatever. And he's going to be a guy that's going to stretch the floor. He does really well at shooting the 3 ball. I think he's over 40% when it comes to shooting the 3. He's just an all-around really, really good player, and I like the pickup for what DeVries has got, because you have guys in Tucker DeVries and Conor Enright, guys that have been in Darren DeVries' system, and then you get a guy like Noah Reed who's got that experience, and he's ready to come in and contribute right away. I totally expect him to be a part of the starting unit, and I think he's going to be a really big piece, and it'll probably be, I would say, the more underrated pickup of the offseason for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, like, last time I think we talked about needing to, bolster the front court, and that's Reed Bailey does a great job of that. Obviously, the news today, missed out on Floyd Budunga. A lot of people thought, Auburn, Indiana were kind of the two it could be. He ends up going back to Kansas. So you got to wonder, how that kind of took shape, what kind of bag he is getting to come back to Kansas and build self. But Indiana's in a really good place. I think it was Jamie Shaw talked about it on the Indiana Sports Beat show with Jim Coyle, that you needed to, get that core of guys. Once you get the first 3 or 4, it's a lot easier to build. And it's important to remember this, the rankings only means so much. You look at a guy like Walter Clayton, who's been the best player in the tournament. I think he was 69th last year in the portal. You have guys, John Tonje, who is an All-American, was outside the top 200 in the rankings. Rankings only matter so much. And, people obviously, it's great to get these top ranked guys, but it seems like DeVries isn't focused on that. He's focused on guys that are going to fit what he's trying to do. And Reed Bailey's versatility makes him kind of an interesting, fit, an exciting fit for Indiana, because you mentioned, Indiana can play small ball with him at the 5. I want to say he's 6'10", 230, so he's not the biggest, center, but is a power forward with his ability to stretch the floor a bit. He shot, you said it was 40% from 3, and I think the attempts weren't great. I want to say it was on 1 attempt per game, but still that ability to space the floor really opens it up, where he can play alongside another big or be the solo big if that's the way Indiana wants to go. And him with Conor Enright, DeVries, there's some spacing there, and maybe Goody's able to come back. We're still kind of waiting on word of, does he get the medical hardship waiver? So that's really going to be interesting to follow. But Indiana's got a nice core they're building from, but there's still so much work to be done for DeVries.
Yeah, absolutely. There's still a lot more roster spots to be filled. But you talk about his system, DeVries' system, and Reed Bailey. I know we're talking a lot on him, but he fits that system. The type of big that DeVries wants in his system. A guy that, and you kind of mentioned it, he only averaged a little over 1 3-point attempt a game.
Yeah.
Or whatever at Davidson, but it keeps the defense honest. And that's kind of like when you go last year, I think you wanted Malik Renew, right, to be that type of guy, to at least attempt, 1-3 a game or whatever. And he just didn't do that. And it made it easy to defend Malik Renew. It made it easy to defend Omar Ballo because you knew what the front court was going to be like. But with, Reed Bailey, you're going to come in and he's going to be a guy that's going to be spacing the floor out. He's going to still be dominating the post. But he's just going to be a guy that's going to keep the defense honest. And that's the biggest part right there, is just keeping the defense honest, keeping, throwing multiple different things at any team that you play against. And that's what's great about Darren DeVries. And plus, he's a really good rim running big. I mean, he's very, very mobile, and he can run down the floor. And you talk about Darren DeVries, who wants to score out in the open or in the broken floor, is what he says, off a missed shot, off a rebound, a turnover, wants to score in the first 12 seconds. And a guy like Reed Bailey that runs the floor extremely, extremely well, and has a really high motor. If you've watched games with him, has a really high motor and does all the little hustle plays as well. And that's a big advantage to you, and that helps you with that. But, Indiana's still got a lot of roster spots to fill, but it's only April 6th, and we still got at least a few more weeks left for the guys that can enter the portal. And there's plenty of more people out there in the portal right now. One of the names that is popping up right now, Nigel Pack from Miami guard. There was a report by Jeff Goodman that there is some interest there with Indiana. Nigel Pack being an in-state guy. This would be his, I believe, sixth year. I think 6th year. So
I believe it's 6th. I think so. I think it's 6, but he had a hardship, an injury year, because he only played 9 games last season.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, you get him. That's a big time guard, and that immediately improves your backcourt tremendously, because that guy's a winner. He's been to a Final Four, right? And he's scored a lot of points, and he's just an all around really, really good guard. So, yeah, I'm curious to see what that comes to. I believe the report, from what I'm seeing, is that he's expected to make a decision soon, but there's a lot of other schools that are involved. I think Clemson's involved, Kansas is involved, and there's a few other schools that I'm totally blanking on right now. But if you got a guy like Nigel Pack coming in and he's your primary ball handler, that would obviously mean that Conor Enright is probably coming off the bench. And if you got Enright, he can be the starting point guard on this team, depending on what else they get around. But if you've got a guy like Conor Enright, that's your sixth man, your backup guard there, you're sitting pretty good when it comes to the backcourt. And that's not even including all the other guys that Indiana is going to potentially get. They still need more shooting, right? And Luke Goody would be a good addition once that gets cleared up, and hopefully he gets that medical waiver to join. But at the same time, you still need a lot more shooting, and still need to fill out that front court just a little bit more.
Yeah, and I mean, that's exactly what Nigel Pack brings to the table. He's 40% three-point shooter for his career on over 6 attempts per game. Like, that's for his career. It's not like he's had 1 year shooting, where we've seen some guys, they've had 1 year of good production from 3 and they aren't able to replicate it. Now, Nigel Pack has done it 5 years now, where he has shot, I think he's only shot under 40% twice, and it was 38 and 35, which 35 wasn't a great year. But you would put Pack alongside, a Tucker DeVries, maybe a Luke Goody. You give him the spacing. He's a guy who could be the leading scorer of a really, really good team. And even if he's not the leading scorer, him and Tucker DeVries, if those are your 2 best players you're going to battle with, that's really good. So Nigel Pack is someone, Indiana fans would, again, he's a local guy, and obviously he has not committed. Indiana, he might not even go to Indiana. I think you mentioned it was Kansas, Oklahoma, Clemson, and Kansas State are the others, which is kind of funny because he started his career at Kansas State. So he could, go back, maybe pull a little bit of a Michi Johnson.
Full circle moment right there.
Yeah, but Indiana fans, he would be a major addition. And, kind of like Reed Bailey, it was, kind of like Darren DeVries is not working, like he's not the loudest right now. He's not going out, you're not hearing Indiana as much as you're hearing some of these other schools for every guy. It seems like DeVries has a very clear sense of like, hey, I want this guy. It's a very targeted, precise approach, which, you didn't really see last year with, Mike Woodson and that, that coaching staff. It seemed like it was who can we get, how many guys, how many top guys in this ranking, how like versus DeVries, it does not seem to be like that. Indiana's not contacting everyone. It seems like there's a very specific prototype of a player DeVries wants. And I think that's what fans want to see from, this program moving forward.
Yeah, he wants guys that fits in his system. What I do like so far, the guys that they're targeting, the guys that they currently have, it's a very versatile group, right? And each player has some versatility to an extent. Trent Sisley, very versatile player, guy that can play inside and out. Reed Bailey, a guy that can play inside and out to a little lesser extent on the outside part, but is more of an inside presence. And then Tucker DeVries, he's a bigger guard in a lot of sense, and he can go against the post players. He can do post up moves and things like that, and just the other guys that they're going after and stuff. But I do really, really like what Darian DeVries is building in a lot of ways. And you mentioned it's a very targeted group of guys, but it's the guys that you can place in different types of spots depending on matchups. I would say so far, Reed Bailey and Tucker DeVries and Trent Sisley, I'll say that a lot of them they're matchup nightmares for a lot of, to a certain extent. So
they're tweeners.
What'd you say?
They're tweeners.
Tweeners,
like guys that can play in multiple positions, and it's like you're not truly a 4, you're not truly a 5, you're not truly a 3. And it's valuable to have on a roster.
They're tweeners in the better sense of what, and this is no knock on Mackenzie and Baco, but obviously Mackenzie and Baco, I don't think Mike Woodson really knew what to do with him on a lot of times. So obviously that resulted in some very too often very poor performances, but obviously when Mackenzie and Baco was clicking, he was one of the best players on the floor every single time. So
I have an Baco take, if you don't mind. Let me jump in real quick. I think he's going to make Indiana fans really upset this next season, because I think he's going to have an all-conference type of year. Wherever he ends up, I mean, the talent, you and I have watched this guy warm up for so many times. The way he shoots the ball, it's special, but he was never put in that position where, it seemed like some games, there was a very clear approach, get him the ball. Others games, it was like, oh, maybe the ball will find him. And you mentioned he's an in-betweener, and he was always forced into 3, where he's not the quickest. He's slow for a 3, and he's a good size 4. And if he's in the right spot with a team that, like a coach that really knows how to use him, I think he could be a 17-point per game scorer next season and make Indiana fans really upset, thinking, why couldn't he done this with us?
That absolutely is probably true in a lot of ways. I'm rooting for Mackenzie and Baco. I really am, because I think he got a bad rap from a lot of these fans, or a lot of these fans in a lot of the sense. So
it's a lot of stuff he couldn't control either.
A lot of stuff he couldn't control. Obviously, the things he could control, the effort part, right? And there was a lot of times when he was on the floor, the defensive effort wasn't there and stuff. So obviously, that's fair in a lot of extent. Yeah. But at the same time, if you're put in weird spots on the floor, a position that you're not really supposed to be playing, you're not in your true natural position. Yeah, things get a little bit confusing out there for any player and stuff. So. But I guess, back to the final thing I was just going to say, with Darian DeVries, that he's getting guys that, you can put in multiple spots. Versatility, I think, for this team is going to be special in a lot of ways. And once you start getting, more front court depth, and then you get the shooters along the way, it's going to really fill out. And I think this is going to be a really, really fun team. May have some hiccups to start off the season. Every team does, especially a team that's brand new. And this team is literally going to be brand new. Yeah. So you got to kind of give and take with that. But, once this team, puts it together and they start clicking and you start getting the right pieces to fit wherever, it's going to be a really fun group to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, going back to, the hiring itself of Darian DeVries, it seemed like DeVries was the guy. Like Dolson, it seemed like he was the top of the list. It seemed like Dolson had DeVries in mind from the start and was very, clear of, I want to get this guy in. And Dolson's, he hired Signetti. I do trust Dolson. If he nails his hire, I think he's already one of the best 80s in college sports. I think Dolson was the Woodson hire, but that one was a little weird because there wasn't really options there. But I think this is, DeVries was Dolson's guy from the start. It was someone he wanted, and he made sure to get him. And Dolson, as done very little to make you say you shouldn't trust him. And if he trusts DeVries, I'm going to trust DeVries moving forward until DeVries gives me a reason not to. And I like what I've seen. I like what I've heard from him. Obviously, what happens right now on, first week April does not matter. It's not going to matter till we see it on the court. But I really like where the program is heading and the direction it's heading in right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it. Scott Dawson, this was his guy, right? This is the guy that he kind of had targeted and circled a little bit, maybe in a very controversial way, depending on who you talk to. If you talk to West Virginia fans, they might yell and scream at you. But what I love about it is DeVries has got all this support, right? And Scott Dawson has made it clear that whatever you need, Coach DeVries, we're here. You need money for NIL? You got it. We're going to use it. In whatever market that you want to shop in, player-wise and stuff, we will do everything that we can to get those players that will fit your system. And that's the pairing of a successful program. If you're on track with your athletic director, if you're on track with your coaches, football, basketball, any other sport, that's when you have successful athletic programs. Maryland, obviously they had some Kevin Willard in their AD, obviously had a lot of fits and backs and forths, and now you see where both of those guys are at. So with Indiana, I think this is going to be a really, really good hire. I'm excited to see what this team can do. I love the players that he's bringing in. I'm really big fan of this Reed Bailey guy. I think he's going to be awesome. Tucker DeVries is obviously going to be great, and I'm excited to see my guy Trent Sisley obviously get on the floor as well. Just gotta get the shooters. Got to get the front court depth a little bit, and then this team will be off and rolling.
Yeah. And I mean, you brought up, successful programs, and I think it's hard to talk college basketball right now without talking about the Final Four. We're recording this Sunday. It's going to come out Monday morning. So, I guess last night for us, 2 nights ago for you guys listening, I think we got to start the Auburn-Florida game. I mean, you talked about the Final Four going in, and it was always, this is the best Final Four ever. You have 4 of the top 10 Ken Pom teams ever. The 4 teams that have been the best all year got to the Final Four, which usually doesn't happen. And Kyler, I will say this, I think it's fair to say it lived up to the hype. 2 incredible games. I think starting with Florida, Auburn, you have Auburn play that unbelievable first half, and then Florida did what Florida does. Walter Clayton, took over a game and showed he's the best player in college basketball at this moment in time. He went against Janai Broome, and Janai Broome is finished second in the Wooden Award. Just a tough second half for him, but wow, Walter Clayton. It's like my friend gave me this comparison, and it's kind of stuck in my head. It's like Steph Curry in college right now. He just takes the most absurd shots, and they always go in.
Yeah, it was a fun game. It really was. I did want to see Auburn win it. I thought Bruce Pearl was the coach that was due for a national championship. But it was a fun game. It really was. High scoring affair. You got the 2 best SEC teams there just competing for it at the Final Four. Like you said, it's a star-studded Final Four. Follow up with that with the incredible comeback by Houston. Duke really just gave that game away by a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, both games were extremely fun. It leads to a really, really good, fun championship game between Houston and Florida, and it's literally one of the top offenses in the country versus one of the top defenses in the country, and you're going to see who kind of fills that out. Is it going to be the young guard and Todd Golden? Is he going to get a championship right off the bat early in his career, or is Kelvin Sampson finally going to get a ring? And I think he's another coach that deserves it and stuff. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be really, really fun. I'm excited for it. Drew, who you picking to win it?
I've gone back and forth. I think Florida might be the better team, but after what I saw versus Duke in Houston, I'm going Houston. What a coaching performance by Kelvin Sampson. John Shire is a star. He is going to be the coach of Duke, I think, for the next 30 years at least. He's that good. He's an unbelievable coach. I am such a believer in John Shire, but Kelvin Sampson took his lunch money. Unbelievable coaching job down the stretch. Duke had no answers for that full court press. They couldn't get the ball in bounds in the final minute. Like a lot of coaches, down 7 with a minute left, they're fouling in that situation. And Sampson elected to play it out, which was a ballsy decision. And his guys executed. I mean, I don't know if you saw the clip that went around on Twitter, the video of Houston's practices of guys just diving for loose balls.
Yeah.
That is exactly what I, expect from Houston basketball practices. They play like they play like they practice, and it's why they're so good in close games. And they've had two of the most remarkable wins of the year. This one, and I don't know if you remember, I want to say it was February. They were down 6 in Allen Fieldhouse to Kansas with 9 seconds left, and they came back, forced overtime, and won that game. This Houston team finds ways to win, and so does Florida. I mean, these are probably the two best late game teams in the country. And I just hope we get a close game because we'll get to see a Walter Clayton versus this Houston defense that just swallows teams up.
Yeah. I mean, Houston looks like a team that just – I saw a tweet earlier today. They just look like a team that practices – they run suicides for three straight hours and just punch each other in the face. That's exactly what I picture this. They're a throwback – they're a throwback team, obviously defensive wise, they're the best, and they just have just a good enough offense to be really, really dangerous. So I'm going to go with Houston to win it. Florida, I just don't, when it comes to toughness, I like Houston, and I think whoever's the tougher team in this situation wins the game. Defense wins championships. I like Houston. They're going to win a championship, and it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a really, really good game, and I'm excited to watch it tonight. I guess this podcast is going to be recorded or be posted on Monday morning, so we'll see what happens tonight.
Yeah, and another storyline too. I don't know if you saw this. LJ Cryer, his freshman year of college, he Scott won a national championship with Baylor. Was a key piece on that team with Scott Drew. And finally got that program over the hump to win a natty. And now he's a chance in his final game of college basketball to get Houston over the hump and win a natty with Kelvin and get Kelvin Sampson that natty. That, I mean, Indiana fans, he's a little bit of a controversial figure here. But Kelvin Sampson, I think, deserves a national championship as a coach. He's probably the best college basketball coach without a natty at the moment. And seeing him get that would be great for the sport.
It would be, and that's a pretty cool storyline. I didn't realize that. So, we'll see about it. It's going to be a good one tonight and everything. So, I got Houston. Go Cougars.
Go Cougars. Go Cougs.
Yeah.
Cougs.
We'll go Cougs. Yeah. Beat the Gators. No, none of this tonight. So, we'll see about it. We will see about it.
Either way, it should be a fantastic game. Looking forward to watching it. But as always, for all things Indiana athletics, make sure to follow the Hoosier on 3 on Twitter and check out the Hoosier.com website. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the Hoosier for premium content, including exclusive interviews, scouting reports, and access to our message board where we'll have a bunch of recruiting updates. Also, make sure to subscribe to the Hoosier on 3 on YouTube and turn your notifications on, and make sure to hit that like button for this video. Thank you for tuning in to the Talkin Bout The Hoosiers podcast. We'll be back.